Hello girls, today we are going to look at how to read a poem, think about it and write. So here is an e-content on it with the objectives, an outline, the content, a glossary, the references, an assignment and a very short quiz with an FAQ also. So here are the objectives of this e-content. It is the objective of this e-content is to enable the learners read poems and understand on their own, identify significant words used in the poems, understand what a poem is about. So here is the outline. The content begins with an introduction. It tells you where you need to start the poem on a page, how you need to read the poetry, how you need to think about the words that you find in the poems, what the poem is about, how puzzlement, interest and pleasure are caused, how you write by finding or choosing the right words, and it also tells about tone and enactment that you find in a poem. So here is the introduction. All poems are made up of words that come together to form lines. Lines come together to form stanzas, and stanzas form a poem. And that's how you get the poem as a whole. So now, what do you know or what do you need to know about lines? Lines are rhythmical in nature and they have a rhyme at the end of each of the lines, so which make the rhyme scheme, and we'll look at the rhyme schemes in the forthcoming units. Now, if that is so, let's look at what the word poetry stands for. The word poetry is a Greek word that means to make. Now, poetry is not like ordinary speech, so it's something special. Therefore, you need to learn and understand how you read, think and write poem in a special way. So, why is a poem written? It is written by people and for people. And therefore, we understand that it's a means of communication. And now each poem is different from another poem. That is to say, no two poems are same and they are not thought or written in the same way. What is suitable to one poem may not be befitting to another poem. So, it might be different. But then, you cannot have individual ways or approaches to each of the poems because they are infinite in number. Therefore, you need to have a general approach to read poetry. So, now when you're reading poetry, you understand that there is a voice in the poetry. Now you would wonder, how can a poem that you find in the text have voice? Yes, when you read a poem, you'll have a voice, and the voice is the medium of poetry. Now therefore, it is mandated that you read a poem aloud as soon as you get them. And now, there are different ways of reading a poem, 3 different ways. The first one is to read the poem in your own room. The second is use a cassette recorder or record your voice. Now, cassette recorder might sound too alien to you. You have too many recent technologies, so record your voice in your own way and then listen to them. Or listen to somebody reading in person or listen to a recorded voice of someone. Okay, but anyway, when you get a poem, read and then listen to it. When you read and listen to it, or when you read, you will find that the poem comprises of particular words, and these particular words, as we saw, are organized in particular lines. Therefore, you need to attend to these words. Now, how would you do that? You need to attend to these words either individually or as a whole. So look for these words, and once you are done with these words, identifying how special they are, you will see or notice that they have certain ideas to communicate to you. 1. 2. They might create some pictures, okay, verbal pictures. Okay. 3. They might cause some emotions in you. So what emotions do they cause when you read these poems? Therefore, when you're reading these poems, and particularly the words, when you identify particular words in poems, you should look for sounds, rhythms, and rhymes. So when you're reading a poem, you should notice what you notice. Now, it might look a little amusing. What is it? Well, you should notice what you notice. What does that mean? Yeah, the poet might, with the intention of bringing your attention to particular concepts or ideas or emotions, might have used a particular word or a kind of poetical technique that you need to notice. Now, next, you need to notice if there are words, what do these words really mean to me? Right, the poet has written a poem and the poem is full of words. Now, do these words have some meaning to me? Do they mean something to me? Yes, you'll have to look for that. Then, after looking for what these words mean to you, you need to look for your reactions to these words and to the poem as a whole. Then, you need to understand if you really enjoy the poem. Now, when you approach a poem, you might notice three elements. What are they? You need to understand what the poem is about. So you need to assess the content of the poem in general or the crux of it. Then the next stage is to question the words and your reactions to them. Then look at the poem as a whole. Okay, so that's how you assess or understand the poem with regard to the words. Now, coming on to what the poem is about, you need to develop a general idea as soon as you start reading or as soon as you have listened to the poem. Okay, then in such a case, you should understand whether the poem is a narrative poem or an argumentative poem. Okay, then not necessary, yeah, I understand, sometimes you might even not understand a particular word, the meaning of a word. In such a case, what should you be doing? You should understand every line there. Okay, and then try to give a general summary. Then ask questions about the words and what your reactions are to those words. Then, after asking all these things, look for puzzlement, interest, and pleasure in these words. Okay, so now when is puzzlement caused? Now, puzzlement is caused when, after reading the poem or after looking into a particular word or looking at a particular word, you will say, how strange, that's odd. Or sometimes you might notice a sudden change in the subject matter of the poem. Or you might even notice that there is a change in the use of the words. It's not used in the particular way or in the normal way. Okay, so you might notice that. And sometimes you might notice that there is a change in the way it is written. So in such a way you will have puzzlement. Then sometimes the poem might cause interest in you, and the interest may be because of various reasons. It might be because you feel interested. That's it, nothing more than that. Sometimes you feel that there is a sort of an unusualness in it. Sometimes the poem is too enticing and so you like it, it's interesting. Sometimes there is a kind of a contrast. Okay, let's look at the contrast and other factors later on, and that's one of the reasons why you like it. Okay, so in such a way the poems tend to be interesting. Then the third one, sometimes when you read a poem, it might be too pleasing to you, they cause some pleasure. So when is pleasure caused? Pleasure occurs when you say, oh, how beautiful this poem is. I just didn't even imagine that such a thing could happen. So it's too beautiful. Or when you say it's too enjoyable. So that's when pleasure is caused. Now, after looking at all that, you will also notice that you can write or you can identify how certain poems are written, and for that you need to master the vocabulary of technical terms and then practice writing in the first and the third person. And when you do that, you need to wonder or pay attention to the choice of words in a poem. And now when these choice of words arise, you see whether there's a kind of puzzlement, interest or pleasure, whether those words cause any one of these three. Okay, so after that you need to focus on the tone of the poem. When you're reading, you get to notice that there is a tone in the poem. And what is tone? Tone is the technical term that stands for poise, mood, voice, manner, attitude and outlook of a poet. Now, Tone may also be cold, cynical, bitter, troubled, uncertain, eager, bragging, gleeful, resigned, and protecting. Now, tone, yes, we understand, is generally a technical term, and every poem, as we know, has a tone. And how do you identify this tone? This tone can be identified based on the pace, that's to say the speed of the poem, the stress or the length of the vowels. Okay? Now, when you're reading, don't just focus on the physical sounds, but you need to look at those sounds also that you hear, that particularly those sounds that tell you of the mood of the speaker, or sometimes it really pleases your senses, and therefore all these could be identified only when you read the poem aloud. Now there is the next one, enactment. Enactment is something that depends upon the idea or the central idea and central theme of the poem, and that is very essential to the study of literature. Now all the aspects of words must join together, and when they join together they enact the meaning or they act out the meaning. Take for example the lines that are given in your text from Matthew Arnold's poem Dover Beach. You find that the sounds and rhythms of the words enact two things. What are they enacting? First enactment is the ebbing and flowing of the tide. Now with the ebbing and the flowing of the tide, you understand, or there is an indication or connotation to something beginning and something ending or ceasing. Next one is the tone or the enactment. It also enacts the overwhelming sadness that the sounds could stir in the poet. Okay, so with these we have looked at two technical terms. One is the tone, that's a technical word used for poise, mood and outlook of a poet. Next is enactment, that is enacting the meaning of a poem. Okay, so with these we have had a look at the two technical terms in the glossary. Now here are your references. You can refer to Marjorie Boulton's Anatomy of Poetry and Richard Gill's Mastering Literature. And I have some assignments for you. Read aloud a poem of your interest and look for the words used in it, the rhymes, the tone, the enactment. Find out if they are puzzling, interesting or pleasing, and then look at how do you react to the poem as parts and as a whole. Write a report on all of the tasks assigned to you above. Now once that's done, here is a very short quiz. It's a fill in the blanks. Now first one, words are organized into dash in a poem. When you're reading a poem, you should notice what you dash. Dash is a technical word used for attitude and outlook of a poet. Enactment depends upon an dash that is central to the study of literature. Dash, dash and dash are the three states that help you to say what a poem is about. Now please find out the answers for these quiz. Okay, now here is your FAQ. Short notes. Write paragraphs in about 100 words on the following: puzzlement, interest and pleasure caused through poems, tone of a poem, enactment through poems. Now with that it ends. Thank you girls. Hope you enjoyed this e-content. Thank you so much.